This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by Squarespace and Netflix. Go to www.netflix.com/iFanboy for your free trial membership.
Hey, do you remember all that time we spent on the Warren Ellis forum back in 2000? Remember that great message board he had?
No. I don't want to.
It was scarring.
They were mean. They were mean web people.
Welcome to another episode of iFanboy, the comic book discussion show from the website iFanboy.com. I'm Ron Richards, and as always, I'm here with Josh Flanagan.
Thank you.
And this guy.
Kilpatrick.
He's not supposed to say the name.
It always throws us off.
He says the name.
We don't know what to do.
I'm like, I got nothing. I wave like a mayor in a parade.
Today we're going to talk about the year 2000.
The year 2000, 10 years ago.
We're going to get specific about it in a second, but first we're going to introduce you to why we're talking about the year 2000. And it was a very important year for us.
It's a seminal year for comics.
In the year 2000, we were just out of college, and we were all reading comics, but not a lot of comics. And Josh, in a fit of comic excitement, he was leaving...
Con excitement! You had con excitement!
He went to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time because you were living in Los Angeles at the time.
I was sent there on a development mission.
Yes.
Before that was the in thing to do. Yeah. I was bad at that mission.
So he goes to Comic-Con. He comes back with all these new books that we hadn't heard of. We'd heard of, but maybe we weren't reading. Right. Books like Powers that just started.
Well, we discovered Powers before that, but yeah.
No, he came back, and that's how I started reading Powers.
Yeah.
This is not about how cool you are.
Yeah.
And then stuff from Warren Ellis. And Josh came back and said, this guy Warren Ellis is writing these great books, and he gave us a whole list of books to read. And that's what we're going to talk about. Warren Ellis' best year, which was 2000.
As we've looked back now in 2010 and looked back at Warren Ellis' career of comics since mid to late 90s to now, we kind of figured out that the year 2000 was probably the moment of perfection of Warren Ellis. Yeah. That he was working on 3 projects that would define him moving forward, and some that would recently have just ended.
They did finish.
They all finished, but looking back on him, saying that, at this moment in time, he was probably one of the best creators going.
Ruled comics.
Yep.
These are projects
with an iron fist.
These were all comics that influenced the entire industry, changed the industry in many ways. And for me, it's still his best work.
Yeah, I agree.
He still does good work. There's still stuff I read from him that I like every now and then, but in 2000, it was all about Warren Ellis. He had these 3 books coming out. None of them featured traditional superheroes. None of them featured traditional stories people were reading, and they ruled comics.
They were modern takes on the superheroes, and it was definitely a challenging read, and I think comics are better off because of them.
They may not have burned up the sales charts, but they were. If people talked about them, the critics talked about them, people in the know talked about them.
Yeah. And they launched careers.
Yeah. They did, absolutely. So we'll get into that with the first one, which is a book that we talked about before in the show, The Authority.
That's probably the most influential of all these books we're going to talk about in terms of mainstream comics.
And in terms that the market is mostly mainstream superheroes. Yeah. I mean, in that way.
In the year 2000, he only had issues 9 through 12 come out, which is the last part. He did the first 12 issues, so the first 1 through 12, the last 9 through 12. So that's 2000.
But because, and there was a couple reasons that you were starting to see the internet work then, and so they came out and they weren't giant sellers because in '99 industry was not doing well, and it was not, it was starting its upswing at that point. And in 2000, you got that word of mouth going in the aforementioned Warren Ellis forum, people started to learn about it, and that was when you really started to see, wow, the web is showing people comics they wouldn't have otherwise seen, because before that it was just Wizard and your comic shop.
Right.
And that's where I sort of came across The Authority, and
I think it's important to note that The Authority was a Wildstorm book, which had a lot of preconceived notions, and the Jim Lee Wildcats.
It came out of STORMWATCH.
Yeah, it spun off of STORMWATCH, which Warren Ellis did in the late '90s, which was a great run that now is critically acclaimed. At the time, nobody was reading.
Yeah.
The whole Change or Die, all that stuff. Basically, what happened was that Wildstorm came to Ellis and said, "Listen, we've got all these characters. There's nothing going on with them. Do something with it." Mm-hmm. And so in STORMWATCH, he started laying the groundwork for The Authority and then eventually Planetary, which then, and as we'll talk about, he had this grand vision in his head that at this moment was really exciting.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
The Authority
they were still Image at that point?
No, they were bought by
They were
at this
DC.
point.
Definitely.
But he started on STORMWATCH before the purchase. Yeah. So he had already, and he did
Authority
DV8,
Scott Dunbier was the editor of all.
Yes.
Not of all of them. We're gonna get to the,
well,
but he was one of
editor
the
of
one
that
of the Overwatch guys. But when we talk about Planetary, there's an interesting note about that.
Okay.
But so with Authority, so what happened was that STORMWATCH was the kind of the UN sanctioned team. There was an international, there was a Japanese guy, there was a Russian guy, there's all this stuff like that, and Ellis dismantled all that and spun it off into the Authority, which is this idea of very trope. Like there's the Superman-esque character, the Batman-esque character.
Justice League.
Basically it's the Justice League, but a modern Justice League saying, listen, as opposed to reacting and stuff like that, we're going to be proactive and we're going to be the authority on what is right, and we're going to
if you don't like it,
we're going to make the world a better place. And it was a much more aggressive take on it. And the biggest key to that whole thing was the character Jenny Sparks, which introduced this idea of a centennial baby. Jenny Sparks was the spirit of the 20th century. Yeah. And it just blew my mind when I read it. I mean, it was great.
Well, you had a lot of things going on. Number one, you had Bryan Hitch, who he was certainly around before that, but this really exploded his awareness in the United States in the comics industry. You had the idea of the deconstruction of the widescreen. This is probably the most influential part of the book, which was big wide panels with maybe only 3 or 4 a page.
Right. Two-page spreads, complete.
Vistas of stuff happening.
Suddenly, after that hit and Authority hit, you started to see that in other books. Suddenly, everything became deconstructed. Everything it became overused and they killed it, which is what happens with everything. But that really was the Authority's legacy is the storytelling types. Where
that and comics aren't for kids anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But there was a ratcheting up of the tone
adult
and sort
themes.
of the adult themes, sort of the age level that the book was for.
You had the violence, you had the social issues. I mean, Apollo and Midnighter, the Superman Batman were a gay couple.
Yeah.
Which if anything, that's what it's remembered the most for, because people don't like that. Unfortunately. I mean, we liked it because we're all liberal minded and that sort of thing. But the reaction is that 2 superheroes kissing, that was.
I thought it was a big deal. There was
the
the thing where they did kiss and then had to tone it down.
Yeah.
They had to pull it back.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would happen now, especially not on a Wildstorm book. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Levitz is gone. Well, it's true.
Yeah, no, yeah,
I mean, that's the fact. That's where those things came from. And more, we're talking about Warren Ellis, that he clashed with DC a lot and things like that. There was the kissing there. There was, Hellblazer Shoot, that's coming out now. So he was pushing those envelopes. And if you start to think about all the stuff that didn't happen in the book that was probably supposed to, or something, that might be fascinating.
Yeah.
But you also, at the heart of it, you had a really rollicking superhero story.
Yes.
I mean, these are really fun. Great big art, big panels, and
the evil Kaizen Gamora, who's the
Well,
you had a team that lived in a ship within the bleed. The bleed is a concept that Warren Ellis came up with.
This conceptual interdimensional space.
Which is funny because now it's a mainstream DC concept.
Yeah, I know.
They use it in the mainstream DC books. The bleed is the area between the multiverse.
Yeah.
It's a red. It looks like blood. So in the ship they were in lived in the bleed, so they could go between worlds. And now that DC uses that as their multiverse thing. I mean, we saw it in Countdown.
Yep, they integrated it really, which is really weird. I mean, it just I found it most interesting. Reading the Wildstorm books from 1992 to that point, to see Ellis then pick it up and create it and make it so creative and so modern and science fiction and exciting that it just had me on the edge of my seat.
And it's still what's happening.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that he set up there is what the Wildstorm universe is now.
Exactly.
That part of it.
Yeah, he's been the architect of the
which we've
Wildstorm.
talked about, but they're still relatively good. They're pretty good now.
We did a whole show on Wildstorm. Go back and watch that. But interestingly enough, during that show, we didn't talk about one book, which is Planetary, which we'll talk about after the break.
Squarespace is a publishing system for anyone looking to build a blog, portfolio, or any kind of website. With blog tools that allow for iPhone updating on the go, hassle-free importing of sites from other environments, robust stats, and much more, Squarespace makes it super easy for anyone to build out and maintain a website that you can only dream of with other platforms. And if you have coding experience, Squarespace allows you to delve into the code and customize things even further. Tens of thousands of people all across the internet have been using Squarespace for years, and their already great service is only getting better and better by the day. On July 14th, Squarespace announced a huge round of capital investment that will allow them to expand at an even faster rate. We want to congratulate Squarespace and are truly excited to work with such great people. Head over to squarespace.com and get a 14-day free trial, and be sure to use the promotion code iFanboy when placing your order to get 10% off the lifetime of your account.
So we got a lot of feedback after our Wildstorm show about why did you talk about Planetary, and it summed up to one simple question, one simple answer for me at least, was that I never read it.
I was the only one who had read it.
Yeah.
Josh read some of it, didn't like it.
Didn't really like it.
You hadn't read it at all,
Hadn't
so
read it, yeah.
talking about it would have been kind of silly because I would have just been me at the camera.
So, but luckily enough, they finally finished it. It was Warren Ellis worked on the Planetary with John Cassaday, the artist I knew from Astonishing X-Men, as well as many covers. But
it's just a hint of irritation.
a little bit. But it's a 27 issue run that started in 99,
99, yep.
98, 99. In the year 2000, they only published issues 7 through 11.
Yeah.
And
That's a banner year for them.
Yeah, exactly. And it was
Almost
maligned
every
with
other
delays. Yeah, maligned with delays and problems. And that's one of the reasons why I never really got into it, because you heard about all these things. But then they finally finished issue 27 this year.
It was ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
like, it's 10 years for the.
They finished
But
it
then-
though, damn it.
And then DC scrambled and got the volume 2 of the Absolute out, and now both volumes of the Absolute are out.
They've been reprinted,
and,
yeah.
And that's when I took the opportunity to read it.
Well, sorry, before we get into it, think about it. This is one of the books when Josh came back that I picked up a random issue. I think it was 10 or 11 at the store, whatever was new at that time, and I read. I was like, "Holy crap! Look at this!" Because Cassaday is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I went on eBay and I bought the first.
I actually did that too. I think I have the first 12.
like 9 or so on eBay or whatever, and then read throughout that part.
Interesting footnote. We were talking about the editors and Scott Dunbier. The editor on Planetary for the beginning and for the majority of the run, John Layman.
Yeah.
The writer now of Chew.
Chew.
Yeah, which is five interesting comics connections.
Yeah, there's actually another one of those in Transmet that we'll get to.
Okay, cool. So
Editor stories.
So what I found fascinating, so I finally read Planetary. I literally just finished reading it last week after reading all 20. And it was one of those things where I sat down with a book and I'm like, oh, I'll read an issue, I'll do it over time. And I was like up till like 2 a.m. and finished the whole volume and like whatever.
Well, the great thing is again with the deconstruction storytelling is they're pretty fast reads.
Well, they're pretty fast reads, but also what I
panels a
find fascinating about what Ellis did with it is that a couple of things. First off, so the concept of Planetary is that we're introduced to the character Elijah Snow, who's the white, dressed in white kind of guy.
White hair. Yeah.
And we're brought into the series as he's recruited to join this corporation called Planetary. And this woman, Jaquita Wagner, recruits him, and she and her partner, the drummer,
It's John Cassaday.
who is a
That
star.
way he doesn't have to get referenced.
It's funny.
Him.
Sidebar is that we go to Comic-Con the next year, 2002, and I'd already been immersed in Planetary, and I knew he drew it to look like him, but I'd never seen John Cassaday before, and I remember walking to DC booth and seeing him, and I went like this, because it's the comic character come to life.
Yeah, it's freaky.
I remember that reaction being like, whoa, jeez, it's the drummer.
And so they describe Planetary as like idea archaeologists, and that wherever something weird has happened, they're going to dig in to find out what it was and what the mysteries of the world, of the universe, whatever.
It's like the X-Files.
Yeah, kind of. What Ellis did with this, which I find fascinating, is that on one hand, from a storytelling standpoint, with the exception of 2 issues, every issue is a one and done.
Yeah.
Every issue is you get introduced, there's a problem, they go investigate, there's a resolution. There's a thread and a bigger story that goes throughout the entire series, but every issue stands on its own. Then underneath that, every issue deals with a genre or a aspect of comic books or an aspect of fiction similar to, it skirts the edge with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen at times. Because he
kind of references it specifically because it's Sherlock Holmes and Invisible Man. They were a similar team in the 1800s, so he kind of plays with that.
He introduces the fact that Elijah...
Also Wildstorm.
Elijah Snow is, like Jenny Sparks, a centennial baby who was born on January 1st, 1900 and is immortal or was 100 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the same concept?
Yeah, same concept.
There's a bunch of them.
There's a whole group.
There's more than...
Yeah, that's why he was working towards something bigger. Like that's why, and it kind of bums me because he never finished it.
Who else?
Whose fault is that?
Yeah, but there was someone else.
Doc Savage was the Doc Savage character.
Yeah. But and so Elijah Snow trains with Sherlock Holmes in the 1920s.
Yeah.
So you got kind of that kind of thing. But there's an issue that's like pulpy. There's an issue that's science fictiony.
There's the Hong Kong action movie. There's the Godzilla movie.
There's the Doctor Strange issue.
Yeah.
There's like a whole bunch of connections they find in one thing. They find this artifact and it's a stick, and someone's like, "Watch this!" And they bang the stick in the ground, and it turns into a hammer, like Thor. Like there's a lot of.
He deals with almost the entire history of comics within this.
Yeah, without specifically calling them out, which is if you're you're a comic fan or into that stuff, it's like almost like a ooh neato, but you don't need to know it.
That's part of this book. Spoiler alert: the big villain is Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah,
is the Fantastic Four are the big villains in the book, and they kill Superman, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman.
Yep.
Like the analogies to those.
And there's a lantern and a cape but so it's fascinating in that. But then the other thing why I enjoyed it, not from a story standpoint, from an art standpoint, being a big Cassaday fan, to see John Cassaday develop from issue 1 to issue 27 to issue 1 wasn't very good. It was very, I describe it rubbery,
the style
loose.
is there, but he hasn't really got it yet.
And to see him refine it and get to the point where, like in 04, where he won the Eisner, where he gets that look that we saw in like Astonishing X-Men had that look the entire run because he had established it. But this, you see him develop as an artist to the point where the last issue, where it's just beautiful, where it just
So this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
The next book we're going to talk about is just slightly below this one, but this is my favorite one.
It's funny because a lot of the reasons that you talked about why you liked the ones that I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I never got into the I don't need this to comment on Thor, I guess.
But it's not commenting on it. It's just, it's existing in the world.
I know, and that's fine. But for whatever reason, that didn't impress me. Then after that was out of the way, and I wasn't impressed by that. I was like. And because it was so deconstructed, I would just read it and okay, it happened. It was a thing.
Now, I think that there's something.
I'm sure that if I went back and read it now, I'd find something else.
I think there's something. I think reading this in issues, I probably would want to kill somebody. Yeah. Because it was delayed so badly, and you'd forget about it. But sitting down reading it in the absolute format, which is beautiful, oversized, all kind of big, was the perfect kind of experience. And what I also liked was that Ellis. If they release this monthly 1 through 27, the beats are perfect. Mm-hmm. The reveal that happens in issue 12, it happens at the right time. Mm-hmm. You're on the edge of your seat, reveal, and then builds up the tension again to another reveal, and
it's a big mystery story.
Yes, yeah.
The superhero elements are sort of the background noise to the mystery of the Planetary and
exactly.
and the Centennial Babies, things like that.
And I wouldn't want the Thor stuff or whatever to overshadow the fact that he wrote a really good. I could say absolute Planetary. He said that he wrote a really good mystery that kept me on the edge of my seat, that kept me reading and turning pages. Mm-hmm. So,
I think it had gone on so long, and I kind of didn't care after a while.
But there's also it is fun to play with that stuff. And also, it's not just superheroes. He plays a genre. He does the monsters.
I remember the Hong Kong one. And it was amazing.
And all the covers are the cover treatments are different for every issue.
You know, my favorite one though was the John Constantine Hellblazer issue.
Yeah.
Where he's died. They go to his funeral, and all the Vertigo characters from the 80s are there, but different. And then Death and Sandman are there. But he's not really dead. He had to fake his death because superheroes were pissed at him for making them complex.
Yeah.
So it was a commentary on Vertigo's influence on the DC superheroes because they're all pissed off that they used to be just simple good guys, bad guys. Now they have feelings and emotions. And then at the end of the issue, Constantine's revealed himself as Spider Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Which is
mind blowing.
He's moved on from the 80s to the 90s, which is Jerusalem's time.
Did you just set up a segue?
I think he did.
Netflix delivers movies directly to your home, saving you time, money, and hassle. As a Netflix Unlimited member, you get DVDs by mail in about 1 business day, plus you can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streaming directly to your PC, Mac, or right to your TV via Netflix-ready device like Xbox 360, PS3, and the Nintendo Wii. Watch as many movies as you want. Shipping is free, and there are never any late fees or due dates. Keep the movies for as long as you like. DVDs by mail, plus instantly right to your TV. Get unlimited movies 2 ways for only $8.99 a month. As a new member and an iFanboy viewer, you can get a free trial membership. Just go to www.netflix.com/iFanboy and sign up now. Be sure to use that URL with the www so they know that we sent you.
My favorite book Warren Ellis has ever done, and it's been reconfirmed by reading it again, is Transmetropolitan. By Warren Ellis and Darick Robertson that came out from, it was originally Helix, but that became Vertigo, and then it's a Vertigo book.
And for 60 issues.
Now
it's his like opus.
The fact that it all happened, it was amazing. It came out on time, pretty much straight all the way through. It's a big story. I was thinking about it as I was reading it, and I was really impressed by that fact. Also, Darick Robertson at the same, they just went and did the work. And
in the year 2000, you had issues 29 to 39, so you had basically the whole middle chunk was the year 2000.
And that's when it was really sort of, really building steam, and it's one story. It ends. It's that perfect Vertigo thing, where Vertigo does, 50 to 70 issues or something like that.
And there's a clear start and a clear end.
And a clear character arc.
And a bunch of arcs in between.
Now, I gushed over this, but I will gush over Transmetropolitan just as much, because that is...
I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but for me, as a person who... you're killing my books with your giant books. For me, a person, this is perfect for me. And I was a little worried that when I went back and read it, they just put it down. when I went back and read it, it wouldn't have the same impact because my tastes have changed in the 10 years.
Sure, and your political affiliations as well.
Well, I never.
Nobody knows that.
No, it's
I don't want to.
The big fear is to always go back to a work you loved a decade ago and think, oh wow, I'm
Is it
different
gonna
now,
hold
and I
up?
don't like it as
Well,
much
you know,
anymore.
not only that, but like at that time, you know, when you're in your early 20s, when you're in your early 20s, a lot of times
fish isn't real.
you like stuff that is
Because it's a very angry book.
angry and aggressive and like all this stuff, and you're just impressed that it's there. I mean,
Yep.
and I found that in this case it worked.
I'm not surprised because at the heart of this book is about the love of words and writing and
Yeah.
power of writing and words.
And truth. I mean, it's
Yeah.
about that.
And you're
also,
still that's still
Sounds
your,
like a Baz Luhrmann movie.
well, the thing is Spider Jerusalem puts on this character all the time. Okay, we're in the future. They don't say exactly when, but it's in the future. Technology's everywhere. It takes place in the city.
Yeah.
There's no telling where the city is. It's just part of the United States.
It's obviously
and,
New York.
And it's the city. It's
Right,
bigger
that's-
than that.
That's New York.
it's so big that
I
it's,
know. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
And Spider is a famous journalist, and he hates everything about everything all the time, and he escapes and goes and lives in the mountains, and eventually his book
Looks like
contracts
John Moore.
catch up with him, and he has to they're like, you owe us this book, you have to come back. And like the
Imus.
future is this weird sort of absurdist violent thing that's going on, and I think the thing that impresses me most about it is that every page is jam packed.
The art's
From an
fantastic.
art standpoint, this is the best thing Darick Robertson ever did, helped greatly by Rodney Ramos on inks. But
Yeah.
like, every time I turn the page, I was like, you're just assaulted all the time. And that is a larger comment on culture and community, and it presaged the coming of the information age and the way that we know it, is that you're just constantly being bombarded. And it's funny, like some of the things didn't come through. Like he talked at one point about the memory in his glasses, and I was like, that's way too low.
Yeah.
But
or the fact that there are still journalists and books and newspapers.
well, no, that's the thing is that there weren't though. Is that there's the AM feed is everywhere. It's on people,
Yeah.
like so you can watch TV and the stuff that's going on. It's just this constant information
But
stream.
Great science fiction concepts.
It's
amazing
like,
science
but like
fiction
like
concepts.
science fiction concepts that are believable and are starting
Well, that's
to come
Warren
true.
Ellis.
But there's just
Yeah.
enough absurdity
Yeah.
that made it fun at the same time.
But Spider is Warren Ellis's last good man character.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the last good, truthful journalist in this mad world with a corrupt president and
Yep.
government that's oppressing the people. He's the last man yelling the truth at the government who has the power to do so.
And he's popular and people like him not because of the truth, but because he's crazy.
Right.
And like
Thompson.
that's the thing. Yeah,
there's a lot of Hunter S. Thompson.
But there's also a lot of Warren Ellis.
Yes,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
There's a ton of Warren
No,
Ellis.
it's Warren Ellis wanting to be Hunter S. Thompson. Like it's that mix of
Yeah.
the two, you know. Yeah.
But and if it was just that, if it was just this absurdist imagination bomb, it would not work. But at the same time, there is an allegory going on for politics and media and just culture in general. If Transmetropolitan was just that imagination, information explosion, and just like, I'm going to say violent swears all the time, if that's all it was, I would have gotten sick of it. And that's what I was worried. But I went back and I remember the thing that I fell in love with was the heart of the book. Because underneath it, there would be arcs, but then there would be little stories about people. There's a really beautiful issue about a woman who was cryogenically frozen, and then they wake her up, and the cruel, cold corporate process that it becomes, and they're like, we're contractually obligated to wake you up and give you a new body, and she has a new body, but like, she doesn't fit in the world. They send her to like a hostel where a bunch of other people are the same, and they become transient. They become,
Well, the best Warren Ellis has a reputation is violent and intricate swearing, but the heart of his best work, underneath his best work is always a heart.
Yeah.
Always, and there's always that optimism in people.
hope for the future and yeah.
So when he's just doing violence and swearing, it's okay, but it's not as good as his best work. It's there in Planetary, it's there in Authority,
Yeah.
it's there in Transmetropolitan.
but it's also funny,
Well, yes,
because
he's also
all
very,
that
very funny.
imagination
Well,
that's going on in there is
The
amazing.
thread between all three of these books is that the protagonists are doing it in the name of saving the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like making the world a better place. I mean, like the authority was there to vanquish evil and make the world a better place. Planetary was answering all the questions to make the world a better place. Transmetropolitan was giving the truth to make the world a better place.
The thing that I guess I liked about Transmet is that it set up a world where all the wackiness that he wants to put in it fits in. It
Yeah.
wasn't like sometimes he'll do a story, now he'll do like a Marvel story or something, and he'll put that stuff in and it feels out of place there. But in this, he created a place where Spider Jerusalem can exist.
Yeah.
And it's so consistent, and also just like there were so many other things that went along with it, and just like the fact like he called his book editor whorehopper. You don't know why. They don't ever really explain it. And then they brought in his 2 assistants, which really helped too, because that grounded him with a person, with people. But there's
people to care about. Yeah.
There's gonna be a scene every once in a while where like he'll help a little kid on the side of the road or something like that. And because the world is a little absurdist, like it kind of works. He wouldn't do that. You don't do that. So.
What I find fascinating about these works is that I think that they're the best works that he's done. The stuff that he does at Marvel, like right now he's doing Astonishing X-Men stuff, it never really has the same feel or imaginative. And I don't know if he's limited by those characters or whatever, but for some reason this expansive invention of a universe and like what he was working towards with Authority and Planetary and the Bleed and all stuff like that. Like I wish he would have stayed healthy and like the art would have gone through it.
Even the stuff he does with Avatar. I mean, I've read not all of it, some of it, and it's just never. It doesn't have that spark that whatever was there. He was also 30 at the time.
He was hungry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the thing is, like when you're really hungry, you want to go after it. Like you get a lot more going, and Spider Jerusalem's part of that too. I mean, like the ending is fucking crushing.
Yeah.
And like he has to do it. He has a compulsion to do it. He can't not do it, even though he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Like it all comes through, and that back then he said, I don't want to do superhero stuff anymore, and he's still doing it. And that's not a fault against him. That's the way the industry works.
He's also doing tons of non-superhero stuff too.
It's true, but nobody reads it.
Yes, yeah.
And when I say nobody, I mean people read it. His fans, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Freak Angels and all the like the stuff that he's been doing.
He's doing good work.
Like he's and a lot of people are enjoying the various little miniseries that he does. Like Black Summer.
Not as popular
but they're not reaching the levels of these, and nor do I think that they're reaching the level of imagination and just like perfection of craft. This. We don't want to say that like Warren Ellis peaked in 2000.
No, but this was his best year.
This is his best. Yeah, this is
our contention is 2000 was his best year.
Exactly. So
he had all three books were going.
Yeah.
I mean, they went the year before, but this was like the end of Authority, the middle, the great part of, and the Planetary beginning is rougher than the middle, and that's when you get the middle of Planetary going into 2000. So this is his best 3 books were going.
Yeah, exactly. So check them all out if you haven't. They're all available. I mean, DC's been re-releasing the trades of
Transmet, and there's perhaps these that just came out. They re-released them.
I think they keep the Authority in. They better keep the Authority in print. Jeez, if they don't, because that's great. But and the Authority after his run finished with the Authority, then Miller and Frank Quitely. So Frank Quitely's early work.
Yeah, that was not as good.
No, but important for Quitely.
Yeah.
So check them all out. If you have any questions or have any comments about this, you can shoot us an email at contact@ifanboy.com.
Or you can go to our voicemail line at 888-FANBOYS 326-2697. Leave us a voicemail.
Get to the website.
Yes.
The website is where you can talk about this show, your favorite Warren Ellis stuff, what you thought of those series, and all the other stuff we put on there. It's a good site, is what I'm saying to you.
And follow us on Twitter over at twitter.com/ifanboy for all the up-to-the-minute updates and fun little things like that. So
I'm going to get an all-white suit.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
I'm going to get a lot of tattoos.
That's con excitement.
Yeah, it's really exciting for you because you're really excited.
What button? It's comics excitement.
Wildstorm exploitation.
He does respond. No, he's written back to me.
Eventually.
Yeah. All right.
Listen, tonight we're gonna go out here. 3 weeks later, I'll be there. It's like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, he really is.